Welcome to Mid-Century Living, your weekly nostalgia podcast about the best of technology and culture from the mid-20th century.
Welcome to episode 40 of Mid-Century Living, the show where we talk all about the best of the mid-20th century and how to add vintage vibes to your modern life. We're your hosts, Jackie
and Gonzalo. Thank you for joining us today. Today we're talking about the great ocean liners of the mid-century. But first, Jackie, how was your week?
My week was good. You were in it.
That's true, I was.
Because my bit of food chat / weekly catch-up is the fact that you came to visit last weekend. And we had breakfast and chatted for 2 hours while you were on your way to somewhere else.
Yes. And we had a very mid-century brunch.
Yes. If anyone comes over and expects food, the food's gonna be vintage. That's just... I'm trying to get that out there, that's the vibe. So,
as it should be.
Thank you for letting me practice on you. I made a couple recipes from Betty Crocker's Good and Easy cookbook from 1961, I think. And I think everyone liked them. So
it was very good.
Thank you.
Yes.
It was fun. It was good to see you in person.
Yeah,
we didn't do a single... Huh?
Instead of just do this.
But yeah, we didn't do any content for the pod while we were together because it was so short and we were just hanging out instead. But next time we'll do something to prove that we are both actual humans that exist in space sometimes.
We're not just voices, although we are wonderful voices.
Yeah, we're okay. So how was your week?
Good. This show comes to you after a show we've already recorded, but also the first shows we record after my cruise ship vacation. So while my... Huh?
Yes, everyone wants to know all about the cruise. You've been teasing it for...
I know, so it's my weekly catch-up, even though it wasn't this past week. So yes, if you somehow have listened to our episodes and decide to tune out my voice, you would have missed that I went on a cruise, and cruising is like one of my favorite types of vacation because it's like all there. The food's amazing, and you can do sightseeing, you can do lounging at the pool, you can do fancy dinners with only minimal judgment if you're the only one wearing a bow tie. But I love it. So yeah, I'll talk a little food talk because why not? It's food.
Yeah.
I ate so much. And as one should on vacation, but the restaurants on cruise ships are always multiple courses. And yes, if I go to a restaurant on my day-to-day life, I sometimes order an appetizer. It's not uncommon. Or sometimes order dessert. It's not uncommon, but 9 times out of 10, I order the entree and then call it a day. But every single night on the ship, I would go to either one of the fancy specialty restaurants or like the regular restaurants and be like, okay, yes, I will have the, I don't know, lobster bisque for appetizer, and then I will have the rack of lamb with the mint sauce for my entree. And then when you're done with that, it's like, yeah, I'll have the tiramisu and a cup of coffee.
Why not?
Yeah.
Because it's all included.
Yes, which, by the way, I said tiramisu because the tiramisu on this ship was so good. I had it twice. And one other time as well because my sister had some and she didn't finish it, so then I did.
I was grocery shopping, tangent, sort of, the other day, and they had like a display of ladyfingers for some reason. And I just like stared at them and sighed thinking about tiramisu and how delicious it is.
Yes, the cruise ship was great. I loved it. It was a lot of fun. I can't wait to go on my next cruise. And it also served as inspiration for today's episode because in an effort to add to our suite of transportation episodes, we're going to talk today about ocean liners. And I say the inspiration came from this trip because I was on the Norwegian Jade, and they have a library, as most ships do. And in this library was this really nice, intricate model of the SS United States, which is an ocean liner from the 50s. and they had a lot of pictures, a lot of information on it. Um, and that's why I want to talk about it. So maybe we'll put some of those pictures up on the Instagrams. So yeah, we are talking about ocean liners today, and we can't get that confused with cruise ships.
Wait, ocean liners aren't cruise ships? Then what are they?
So interesting that you ask. Ocean liners and cruise ships are not the same. So basically, the ocean liner was just a merchant steamship, right? That's the easiest, most basic definition out there. But not all merchant ships were ocean liners. So merchant ships are classified by operating method, the tramp steamer and the ocean liner. And tramp steamers really were just ships that were engaged in the tramp trade, which does not have a fixed schedule, does not have published ports of call, so it's like irregular. And the ocean liner is a type of passenger ship that is used primarily for transportation across the ocean, so between continents. And it can carry cargo or mail, but the primary purpose is to transport people.
Oh, I think I get it.
Yeah.
So, like, the difference is ocean liners are specifically to get you from one geographic location to another geographic location, and you just happen to enjoy your time there, whereas cruise
Correct.
ships are specifically just sailing in circles in the ocean
Yeah.
for no reason other than for people to hang out there for a week.
Correct. And there are cruise ships that are like one-way cruise ships, and then you have to find a way to fly back home. But they're still not, the purpose of that is still vacation and cruising. It's not like, oh, I'm moving from, New York to Iceland, which is a Norwegian cruise that does that. You're still cruising. So yes, there's very similarities with cruise ships. Both are ships, both carry passengers, both even look similar. Well, at least the modern cruise ships are made to look like the ocean liners of the past. But again, ocean liners must be able to travel between continents from point A to point B on a fixed schedule. So they must be able to withstand the rough oceans in the middle of a crossing, as well as rough weather. Basically, they have a higher hull and a higher promenade deck and higher boat deck, which is where the lifeboats are, and usually thicker hulls and deeper drafts. And this is as technical as I'm going to get. Like after this, it's not technical talk anymore. But the draft is the amount of hull, which is the body of the ship, that is below the waterline. Yeah. But because I am the mid-century living resident history nerd, I want to talk a little bit again about the Industrial Revolution.
And our history nerds bringing us back to the Industrial Revolution again.
Yes, well, only for a second. I just have to say that this is where it all started, because the Industrial Revolution gave us a steam engine, which through time and improvement was used to power things like ships to cross the Atlantic, thus creating the ocean liner, which is also known as the passenger liner, so I might use those interchangeably. So, real quickly, a little bit of history about them. Why do we need the ocean liners? Well, it's easy. As the world superpowers started to expand, they needed to connect their territories. And with the development of the steamship, naturally countries started using these since they were faster and more reliable, meaning they could operate on a schedule, right? So steamships started covering all areas of travel, although mostly local, so not between continents. The earliest, you could say, and again, history nerd here, in the early 1800s, we had the first steamship that actually traveled across the ocean, which is the SS Savannah, which went from Savannah, Georgia in the USA to Liverpool, but only used steam to power herself for a couple of days. And it was not really celebrated. It just proved that steamships were capable of crossing the ocean, but it didn't prove that they could do it under their own steam for the whole time. Look, that was a pun that was not intended. So public interest was not great. And actually, the steam engine was removed from the ship later in the decade. But closer to the mid-1800s, the SS Sirius, yes, spelled like Harry Potter fans would spell the word Sirius, left Liverpool and arrived in New York 18 days later, traveling at 8 knots and fully under a steamship's power. And funnily enough, they did not have enough coal to create the steam, and they ended up having to burn cabin furniture in order to make it across the Atlantic.
Oh, no.
Yes. But its success was short-lived. The SS Great Western did the same crossing literally the next day. Like, it left a few days after the SS Sirius, and it arrived one day later. So it broke the record that the SS Sirius created a day later. But what's important about that is that it started this tradition of a race of speed to cross the Atlantic, which is now called the Blue Ribbon. And this is an unofficial accolade given to passenger liners that cross the Atlantic in regular service with a record highest average speed.
That is all fascinating, but what does it mean in mid-century terms?
I'm getting there. Basically, once we had steamships, we started crossing the Atlantic. So through the end of the 19th century, countries competed to have the biggest and fastest ships, and a number of companies or lines were created. So notably, the U.S. had the company, the Collins Line. Germans had the Hamburg America Line, and the British companies, the Cunard Line, which is still operating today, and the White Star Line, which was made famous by the RMS Titanic. And I think that's also the only time we'll reference the Titanic in this episode.
Really?
I think so.
Interesting.
Future selves, edit this out if wrong.
We can make it the drinking game where every time you say Titanic, you have to take a shot.
Yes, that's true. Anyway, so ships evolved after this time. They lost their sails, gained an appeal to luxury, and ocean liners were used during both World War One and World War II to help support the war effort. And after the wars, steam passenger liners kept kind of doing their things, meaning returning to passenger service, and kept strong until the 1960s. And we've talked about how the jet engine revolutionized travel. The way it revolutionized travel was by killing the ocean liner.
Aw.
Yeah. So by the 1960s, almost 95% of passenger traffic across the Atlantic was by air. And by the 1970s, most, but not all, because there's still one that remains today, ocean liners were converted to cruise ships. Spoiler, the Queen Mary 2 remains the only working passenger ocean liner. And what that means is that it's the only ship that crosses the Atlantic with the purpose of moving. Because cruises do relocation cruises where they move the ships for their location, but the Queen Mary 2 actually goes back and forth during season. During off season, it does cruises.
Interesting. But ocean liners didn't stop being a thing during the mid-20th century. Actually, travel by ocean liners boomed after World War II. Well, all ocean travel boomed. Actually, after the war, everyone had to rebuild, and in a way, it became a golden age for North Atlantic crossing liners. By the mid-1950s, more than 50 passenger liners steamed between Europe and the USA. Competition between countries for the best ocean liner was aimed at showing the world how able the respective country was, and how little the war had affected them. 1958 was the busiest year for ocean liners, taking almost 1.2 million passengers across the oceans. However, this was the first year of commercial transatlantic jet flight as well, so by 1959, airlines had 60% of travelers across the Atlantic.
Womp womp. The truth here really is that post-World War II created a boom for immigration, so especially from war-torn Europe to the USA and to also other countries in the Americas. And with jet travel still in its infancy, and may we add, very high cost, the main way to cross the Atlantic for people restarting life really was by ocean liner. So between 1941, which is technically still during the war, well, not technically, it is still during the war, to 1950, 1,035,000 people immigrated to the USA alone from Europe, from Germany, UK, and Italy. During the 1950s and 60s, an average of 250,000 people immigrated into the USA from Western Europe mainly. So for comparison, today the USA allows up to 675,000 visas per year. Many countries also received ocean liners as form of reparations post-World War II. So meaning that some countries, such as France, were, quote, paid for the war costs, right, through the acquisition of ocean liners. An example here is the German ocean liner, the SS Europa, which was awarded to the French company, I might say it right, might say it wrong, General Transatlantique, as a war prize to replace ship casualties of the war, and served as the SS Liberté until 1961. And what I meant by ship casualties is ships that were sank during, like ocean liners that were sank during the war. And the end of World War II also brought the beginning of the Cold War. So bet you didn't think we'd talk about the Cold War in an episode about ocean liners.
No, I did not think we'd get there.
my favorite part of history. But also, it's important to mention this because it helped create the boom that we're talking about, right? The boom in ocean liners in the late 1940s and early 1950s. Because the problem here was that the USA was scared of another worldwide conflict, right? So quickly after World War II. And one of the main problems that wars that are far away has is how do you get the troops there, right? You got to get the troops there safely and quickly. And air travel, air transportation was still, again, in its infancy, so would be unable to take all the troops necessary for a war if it happened quickly after World War II. In fact, during World War II, the two queens, which is the name for the Cunard Line RMS Queen Elizabeth and RMS Queen Mary, carried a total of 320,000 troops between the USA and Europe. So the US government saw the importance of these vast ocean liners. And the result was the creation of the SS United States.
And this is the one you saw at your little exhibit.
Yes, this is the one that was in the library of the Norwegian Jade and the inspiration for this episode. So the SS United States was a joint effort between the U.S. government and the United States lines of ships to create the, quote, most splendid ship that has ever sailed the seas. That's not really a quote. I put that as quotes, but I thought it was funny. It's based on research. The three conditions the U.S. government had for this were: it has to be fast, it has to be safe, it has to be easy to convert to a troop carrier. Because remember, the idea here is we need these ships in case we go to war.
Right.
So it was built by the Newport News Shipbuilding and Dry Dock Company in Virginia and supervised by naval architect William Francis Gibbs. And its keel was laid down on February 8th, 1950. And when it was christened the SS United States, it awoke a great deal of national pride in the American people. It really was the best of the best. It's the only thing befitting to a great country who has just won World War II, essentially. Right? That's how many people at the time viewed the USA.
Mm-hmm.
So to make it the fastest ship, it employed a massive steam turbine engines. To make it safe and easy to convert, the interior was simple, but still revered as luxurious. Everything was steel, glass, and aluminum, so even the handrails and even the deck chairs. Gibbs even tried to get an aluminum piano from Steinway Company, but they refused. So the only things made out of wood on the ship were said to be the piano and the butcher block.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was able to be converted to a trooper capable of carrying 15,000 troops in just a few days. So it fit all the three things.
Oh, sorry.
No,
I didn't mean to cut off an actual thing. I wanted this to be cropped out. So that means like they didn't have wood flooring?
No, everything was steel, glass, and aluminum.
So they could like hose it down, not worry about upkeep, and it could hold dirty soldier boots and customers. Like I guess that's the idea.
The idea is that it could eventually be used in a more utilitarian view, vis-a-vis carrying troops.
Interesting. I want to go look at pictures of the interior now because I'm kind of curious to see what like an all-metal ship, if there's no wood anywhere.
You can go look at it. It's in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I'm gonna Google later.
So the U.S. government paid for almost 70% of the ship's total cost, which in 1950s was $78 million.
Yikes! That is over $1 billion in today's money.
It is extremely amount of money. Like so much money that I couldn't even say the sentence correctly.
I just can't even make words. So much money.
Yes. So on her maiden voyage, the SS United States averaged 35.6 knots, crossing the Atlantic from the US to England in 10 hours and 2 minutes, faster than the RMS Queen Mary, who held the blue ribbon for 14 years prior. And the ship used about 2/3 of her total power. So the commander, Commodore Harry Manning, stated in an interview that he had, quote, simply been cruising through the crossing, which prompted British journalists, remember the RMS Queen Mary is part of the Cunard Line, which is British. It prompted British journalists to call him a, quote, Yankee braggart. So back home, the ship was nicknamed the Big U, and it became the point of national pride. So with it and its running mate, the SS America, began the only US ships to cross the Atlantic and became the main form of travel to Europe for Americans. And again, the competitors for the SS United States were the Cunard Line RMS Queen Elizabeth and the Queen Mary. But even the English Duke and Duchess of Windsor called the SS United States their favorite, having previously favored the two queens.
I'm making a smug face that I can't really put into words.
So these four ships then competed throughout the 1950s until the 1960s, when jet travel became more affordable and more normal. In 1961, U.S. Congress allowed this flagship to do off-season cruises, and on January 20th, 1962, she set sail on her first cruise, a 14-day cruise out of New York. By 1964, the SS America was sold, and the SS United States kept running at a deficit, prompting its retirement. So by 1969, she was laid up after 400 plus crossings, adding up to over 2.7 million miles. The ship was put under the authority of the U.S. Federal Maritime Administration in 1973. And it's funny that the U.S. government took ownership of the ship, but it was done because it was deemed unable to be sold to any non-American company, because when she was built, she was largely a secret of the government. Even Norwegian cruise lines approached the USA with plans to purchase the SS United States and convert it to a cruise ship, but they were denied. And the ship has gone through several hands, all attempts to bring her back to glory, but all have failed. In 1999, she was placed under the National Register of Historic Places, and today, sadly, or rather sadly, the SS United States Conservancy has ownership of the majestic ocean liner, and she is docked in Philadelphia with barely enough money to keep her afloat, never mind refurbishing. So her future is, at the time of recording, unclear.
That's a shame.
It is a shame because she was really a beautiful vessel. So, and it was such a point of national pride to the USA, especially after the war. Like we've talked about before in our podcast, how like hard it is to put in words the national pride of the mid-century, but this was such an icon of that pride that to no longer have it be active as even a museum.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest. Why not just leave it dry docked and have people go on and look at it?
Yeah, like that's what's sad. If we were to lose this ship, it's like losing a chunk of post-war history.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Yeah. So that is the end of the story so far for the SS United States. And obviously, there's many different ships we can talk about for mid-century ocean liners, but this is just one of them.
Another one is the Andrea Doria, which was the attempt by the Italian line to reestablish itself as the pride of Italy in the 1950s. The Andrea Doria and her sister ship, the Cristoforo Colombo, were ocean liners designed to compete for the blue riband and symbolize Italy's new start after World War II.
Say it in Italian, come on.
No. I'm so rusty.
Okay, keep going, sorry.
In June 16th, 1961, the Andrea Doria was launched to great cheer by Italians, bringing attention to Italy and hoping to reestablish the country's leading position it held in the 16th century. Her name comes from one of Genoa's greatest sea heroes. Her sister ship's name is an obvious callback to the most famous of sea navigators. Yeah. Ships were a marvel of new technology, including very advanced safety systems. Divided into 11 watertight compartments, any two could be filled without endangering safety. Lifeboats could be lowered at a maximum ship listing angle of 20 degrees and at a very powerful radar. But the real claim to fame for the Andrea Doria is its crash in 1956 with a ship called Stockholm. So, the Andrea Doria and Stockholm are both near Nantucket, with the Andrea Doria arriving and the Stockholm departing. After failed attempts at not crashing into each other, the Andrea Doria struck the Stockholm. The Andrea Doria immediately gained a 20-degree list to starboard, which slowly increased, rendering the portside lifeboats useless, leaving the ship sinking with lifeboat accommodations insufficient for those on board. 46 people perished as a result of the collision between the ships, but nearby vessels came to the rescue, including the Stockholm, and rescued all other passengers. 11 hours after the collision, the Andrea Doria capsized and sank. Captain Calamai refused to leave his ship as he should, but was finally persuaded after assurance that all passengers had left. But he remained in sorrow for the rest of his life. The Stockholm lowered her flag and blew her whistles as goodbye. The wreck of this ship remains under 250 feet of water about 50 miles off the coast of Nantucket and beautifully preserved, if completely looted.
Yes, you can go visit it if you are certified to scuba dive that low. Actually, I don't know if you can scuba dive that far. It has come to my attention in this moment that I really don't know what 250 feet of water is.
What it looks like?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the scuba dive rules because I would never ever ever scuba dive because I find it too.
Scary? You can say
Yeah,
scary.
like
I'm scared
not
of it.
being underwater isn't scary. The complications like and the safety procedures for scuba diving freak me out. Like that you have
Yeah.
to go in backwards, that you can't come up too fast, that like you can't fly for 2 days. Like all of that just making me think like your body shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
And it's like my
No,
self
I'm
preservation.
100% behind you on this.
Right.
Like, my thing is like, okay, what if I run out of air? I like if you are like snorkeling and you dive a little bit, that's fine because you're still within I can swim up for air distance. I'm assuming that 250 feet is not I can swim up for air distance.
Right.
So
Yeah. It's terrifying.
yeah, but anyway, yes, the end of ocean liners is due to air travel, right? But did you know that some ships had planes?
What?
Yeah. um, it's actually a really cool bit of ocean liner history from the mid-century, and this was done in order to more efficiently handle mail service, since ocean liners sometimes carry mail, right? Uh, the SS Europa, which was later the SS Liberté, and her sister ship, the SS Bremen, had small seaplanes that were launched from a catapult on her upper deck between the two funnels. And this helped reach destination faster because the plane could reach it a couple of hours sooner. And it really only lasted a couple, not a couple, it only really lasted a few years as it was very expensive and very complex.
Well, talking about planes is a good transition to today since we travel almost exclusively by plane now.
Yes, it's hard to see the exact impact of the mid-century ocean liner today, though you could argue that without the ocean liners, we wouldn't have cruises today. And cruise ships are really that connection that we have to the great liners that we used to use. So today, many people still hold the great steam ocean liners of the mid-century and of before as these like beautiful reminders of time gone by. They've often been the setting for love stories in film, as well as disaster films like the 1972 film The Poseidon Adventure and its remake. And the only way to connect these great ships is to travel on the only remaining ocean liner still in active service, the RMS Queen Mary 2. This ship, operated by the Cunard Line, yes, that same one that competed with the White Star Line, although now owned by Carnival Corporation. It replaced the last major ocean liner built in the mid-century, the Queen Elizabeth II, which was built in 1969. Now, the QM2 is not a steamship, rather it's a diesel ship with integrated electric propulsion, but it is still an ocean liner. And really, the creation of cruise ships was kind of like a direct attempt by ocean lines to remain profitable. As travelers shifted to more air travel and less transatlantic ship voyages, lines began converting their ships to operate on cruise routes. However, those characteristics that we talked about earlier that made ocean liners perfect for crossing the Atlantic also made them hard to become cruise ships because they used a lot of fuel to cross, right? They had a very high consumption of fuel and they had those really deep holes, which made them unable to make it into shallow ports. So by the early 1970s, those that could were now operating as cruise ships, and those that couldn't were no longer operating. In the 1980s, the liners RMS Queen Elizabeth II and Canberra, which were both British owned Cunard Line ships, were requisitioned for service in the Falklands War as troop carriers, and the Uganda was used as a hospital ship. This last one remained a military hospital ship after the conflict. So there's some ocean liners of the mid-century that remain still today. Many have been converted to museums or sit idly portside, such as the SS United States. The Queen Mary became a museum/hotel in 1967 and lives in Long Beach, California, in the USA.
And is haunted.
And is haunted. I've never been to it because I've never been to Long Beach.
I've never been to it, but it's on my like spooky travel list of must-dos.
Yes. My sister's been to it in one of her many travels, and the only thing I remember her telling me about it is that she was fine during the tour until the tour guide said, "And now we are under the water line," and she was like, "GTFO." The SS Great Britain became a museum in the 1970s and resides in Bristol, in England. And 7 post World War II ocean liners exist today. 3 haven't been preserved. The Rotterdam from 1958 is moored in Rotterdam and serves as a museum and hotel and has been doing that since 2008. The Queen Elizabeth II from 1967 is a luxury hotel based at Mina Rashid in Dubai, and it's been there since 2018. And the Answerville from 1962 has been refurbished as a hotel for SeaWorld in, God help me with the pronunciation, in Shenzhen, China since 1984. Another couple of cool facts about ocean liners, specifically the SS United States, which again entered service in the 1950s and won the blue ribbon on her maiden voyage, kept it until Richard Branson won it in 1986 with the Virgin Atlantic Challenger 2.
He's just trying to win everything.
He is. But it's very much Richard Branson. That is like his persona.
Yeah.
Again, the SS Andrea Doria, which we talked about earlier from 1953, is notable for having sank in 1956 after the collision with the MS Stockholm, which was then renamed as the MV Astoria and was refitted as a cruise ship and was active until 2020, and it only stopped service because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So that is ocean liners of the mid-century. And now that we've caught up to the present, it's time for our etiquette segment. And we thought because we talked about ocean liners, we should maybe share some of the mid-century etiquette on how to travel by ship.
Indeed.
So, Jackie, what do we have?
So first off, we have Amy Vanderbilt's Everyday Etiquette, answer to today's etiquette questions from 1956. And she says, on the first night and the last night aboard, people don't dress for dinner, but wear their ordinary travel clothes. This is because on the first night one is just unpacking, and on the last night one has just packed up. You found it!
I did! Okay, so everybody listening out there, I've always known that you don't change on the first night of a voyage, but I never understood why. And while I was on my ship, I messaged Jackie. I go, "You need to find out why this is the rule." And now I found it.
So I was I kept researching it in like Edwardian terms because of where you got that fun fact from.
Yes.
And you had to go all the way to the 50s to figure out why.
Yes.
Fascinating. Anyway, glad that mystery is solved.
Yes. The next etiquette tip comes from A Guide to Elegance by Genevieve Antoine Darieux. And it is, quote, "There exists an established set of rules which one is wise to respect." And these are the rules. Arrive on board in a rather casual ensemble. Never dress for dinner on the first and last night at sea, quote, "but deck yourself out in your best evening clothes on the other nights," end quote. Relax in sports clothes during the morning. Appear for lunch in a slightly informal outfit. And she goes on to say, quote, "all of which necessitates a mountain of luggage, to the great joy of the few remaining women of unlimited wealth and leisure who would rather travel by boat than any other way, and thus enjoy one of the last orgies of luxury and have survived in our age of interplanetary rockets," end quote.
Whoa.
Yes.
So Emily Post's Etiquette, the 18th edition, says, deck chairs are available for sunning and reading, but that doesn't mean that they're your personal real estate. Don't leave your belongings on a deck chair to save it for later use, since they are usually in much demand. Most activities, including the gym, have sign-up sheets. Arrive on time for your scheduled activity. And if you can't make it, call to cancel so that another passenger has the opportunity to join in. Regarding eating, soon after boarding, pay a visit to the dining room or maitre d' to confirm pre-made arrangements or request changes. If you are seated at a table with people you don't know, make an effort to learn their names and a little bit about them. Restaurant manners apply. See Chapter 8, Dining Out.
Yes. So we'll have to cover that from her book as well at some point. And lastly, the Cunard line. We wanted to add this since this is the
official Cunard line etiquette?
Yeah, it's the last remaining active ocean liner is a Cunard line liner, right? The
Cool.
QM2. So Cunard line says, during the day, casual shirts, shorts, and trousers are ideal. Main restaurants require casual wear for breakfast and lunch. So in the Queen Mary 2, King's Court allows shorts. In the Queen Victoria and the Queen Elizabeth, which are two cruise ships by the Cunard Line, their Lido restaurants allow shorts as well. Evening wear is split into two categories, which change dailies. Formal evenings, where an evening or cocktail dress or smart trouser suit for ladies, tuxedo, dinner jacket, or dark suit for men, or formal national dress or military uniform, which can include military or war decorations. And the other category is informal evenings, which take informal with a grain of salt because requires a jacket for men, although the ties are optional, cocktail dresses, or stylish separates or equivalent for ladies. And after 6 p.m., regardless of the day, shorts and blue or worn denim are considered inappropriate for both sexes. Sandals and sleeveless tops are considered inappropriate for men. And the Cunard etiquette list goes on to say, quote, any guests wishing to dress more casually are welcome to dine in the King's Court or Lido Buffet restaurant and relax in the Winter Garden or Garden Lounge bar, but should not use other areas within the ship, including our alternative dining restaurants, out of respect for their fellow guests, end quote. Yes. So what do you think?
I like all of this etiquette. I think all of it's perfect. I love dressing up, obviously. So it would be nice to be, well, I guess we can hear some of your experience on your cruise. So how did the masses adhere to the dressing etiquette? Is this sort of how it's like today?
So I always dress up for dinner. When I go on a cruise, I have my day outfit, which maybe includes outside of the ship or inside the ship. Doesn't matter. It's the same, shorts and t-shirt. I also have a pool outfit, which is just my swimsuit. But I always have evening wear, and I always wear a button down. At the least, it's chinos with a button down and a nice pair of J's. But that's maybe one night out of the ship. The rest I'm wearing my dress shoes and nice slacks and button down and a jacket and a sports coat or a jacket. And I was gonna say more often than not, but it's really all the time, not ever not. But I wear a bow tie, or I have the tie a necktie that's got little anchors on it.
So did you notice more people were casual on the first night of the voyage and everyone dressed up the rest of the nights, or were you the only one still casual? Since that's what inspired this etiquette segment.
So the first night, everyone's pretty casual. Whether they're doing it following the etiquette or not, I don't know. But the big thing is that at Norwegian cruise lines, there's no formal night. So you do see people dress up, but it's very much the exception, not the rule.
Well, I love all this etiquette, and I think that if cruises are our last remaining bit of luxury, you should play it up and really go all out and make sure to dress for dinner and have a different day outfit and nighttime outfit. I think I love it. Yeah. So I think we should keep all this etiquette. I also appreciate Emily posts in the middle there talking about deck chairs. Because yes. That really grinds my gears.
Yes. But let's give it the stamp of approval. And with that, it looks like we've landed the plane, or should I say we have docked the ship. Thank you all for listening today. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the show and tell a friend.
You can also follow us on Instagram and YouTube at MCL Podcast. Instagram is probably the best place to send us feedback and episode suggestions, so send us a DM anytime. Also, you can now contact us through our new fan mail feature. There's a send us a text message option in each of our episodes, and you can use it to send us notes. And if you do, we'll read them on the pod.
Yes, so send us some fan mail. And thanks for listening, guys. We'll talk to you again next week.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Mid-Century Living. Please subscribe, tell your friends, and leave a review. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram at MCL Podcast. See you next Friday.